Rise up, the Dukes are back, and now it's time to rise up. The crew is back, and now it's time to rise up. The Dukes are back, and now it's time to rise up. Rise up, rise up. The Dukes are back, and now it's time to rise up. The crew is back, and now it's time to rise up. The Dukes are back, and now it's time to rise up. Rise up.
And we're back to the D's on Fire podcast. Duke's just coming off a great win against Marshall, and I say great in the fact that it was revenge from last year where Marshall blew us out. Game itself wasn't necessarily the most entertaining basketball content to watch.
Yeah, it was weird because like Duquesne scored 85 points. That's a lot of points. But yeah, I kind of agree. It was kind of, I don't know. There's something about it that was a little boring. Maybe the amount of free throws there were.
Yeah, the pace of the game wasn't necessarily great. There was a stretch in the second half where we decided to try and run, made a bunch of mistakes, and then Dambrot was like, let's just calm down and finish this one out, guys.
Yeah, that was like the 4-minute mark. I remember exactly. That was, I think, right after when Dixon and Trey Clark went up for the oop.
Yeah.
And just totally effed it up. So,
yeah,
good timeout.
Yeah, I mean, take away Jimmy Trey Clark. Thank God for him in the first half of this one. I think he had 19 points at halftime. Was just dominating this one. And Marshall didn't really adjust on how to cover him either because they kept switching the bigs onto him and he just kept blowing by them, even in the second half. Drew some fouls that way. Yeah, great mismatch. Great way to attack it.
Yeah. He had a great game. And number one thing that kind of talked about it last week with the minutes, didn't get in foul trouble this game and scores over 20 points. Would you look at that?
Yeah.
Shocking.
There was a guy on Marshall with the last name Clark who got a second foul pretty early on in the first half. And I was like, no, he's not getting in foul trouble again.
Yeah.
That was luckily the other Clark.
Pretty good with everyone on this team. No one from the Dukes got 4 fouls. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, and I was gonna say Chabi didn't look terrible today, and then he got hurt.
I think this was his best game, and then he must have got hit in the face or something, and he couldn't really. That's kind of what it seemed like to me. Maybe a knee or a foot when he went over
I wasn't
him.
sure because he was walking gingerly, but it looked like he was holding his head. But then it looked like he like couldn't really walk normally
I feel like it had to do with his vision, and he couldn't see, so that's why his walking was impacted. But we're just speculating, obviously.
1,000% from a whole nother state over. But yeah, I don't know. That was a little scary too, just because it's him and the heart condition and everything. I was like, everything's okay. Trey Williams, I'm excited to get him back in the swing of things. I saw him on the bench after Chabi went down, and he seemed like he was into the game as much as he could being on the bench. That was just a random takeaway that I had right when Chabi was down was, man, this would be a great time for us to be able to have Trey add to the depth of this team if Chabi's out for a little while.
For sure. Totally agree with that. I also think Savrasov had another great game. I think he's hopefully into his groove with this team, and this is him now. 14 points, 4 or 5 from the field, got to the line a lot, 6 of 9 from the free throw line, but eating the glass too. 9 boards, was so close to a double-double. He had a definitely, obviously next to Trey Clark, second most impressive Duke tonight, but I like what I'm seeing.
Yeah, and shooting so well from the free throw line is outside of his norm. So that's great. If he and Dixon, Dixon's been getting a lot of practice in the game lately, but yeah, both of them are starting to shoot a little better. I don't know if it's just comfortability or what, but that's good to see. Dixon, he he the one post move where he definitely traveled and you could hear the fan yelling was that just made me laugh actually out loud when I heard that, because I could just picture the guy who was yelling too.
Yeah. It was, I guess, it was a good post move. I mean, it wasn't called, so
Yeah, best post move ever. Um, and then shout out to the announcers, by the way, for being pretty impartial on saying when fouls should have been called or people got away with stuff. It was both sides. So he called it out, and I enjoyed that a lot. You don't
if I
usually
don't,
hear announcers mention when refs screw up, especially when it's like, oh, on the Trey Clark drive, yeah, he got fouled. They got away with one.
yeah,
Great.
if I don't notice the announcing that's not a home Duquesne game, if I don't notice it or it's not hindering hindering the game at all, then you're doing your job.
What did you
Like
think of?
I didn't have an opinion one way or the other.
Did you have an opinion on the camera, especially in the first half?
Very weird. I guess yeah, it's basically like at the 3 point line on the left hand side of the court. Just bizarre.
Some people on Twitter were tweeting out, appreciate them putting my childhood camcorder my parents used to good use.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and I
And the
think someone
court
mentioned,
looked really scuffed up too.
yeah, from the wide
I don't think that
view
was a
that,
design. I think this court just stinks.
listen, from the wide view, the normal full court view, it didn't look bad. But then, yeah, you
Yeah,
get it up
when they like
close and
zoomed
it's like,
in, yeah,
ah. But I
weird.
will say I enjoyed the fan showing on their part. I really wish Duquesne had a consistent fan showing like that. Obviously, Marshall has had that history of the fans being so closely linked with the team. All the athletic teams, really. Um, but yeah, that would be something to aspire to from a Duquesne standpoint of having that many people show up consistently on a weeknight game.
I had the same thought. I was like, this is pretty big arena. I mean, it's not small either. Looks kind of the same size as the Coop. Um, and yeah, they had a great showing. So um, yeah, you just get jealous anytime you see like a mid major like this just have that type of turnout.
Yeah. Um, I'm trying to think if there was anything else. I mean, we have to mention Day Day setting a new school record for most consecutive free throws, and then immediately missing right after he sets the new record. So he just got it on time. 43 straight free throws made. Um, yeah, he and Trey Clark are pretty consistently good at making those. So I'm good with those guys in late game scenarios.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much the only thing that was going with Day to Day in this game. Shot 1 of 5 from three, 3 of 10 from the field. Didn't not his best offensive night. But yeah, I mean if he gets to the line, he's shooting 90, definitely over 90% for the season based off what I've seen in my research. Don't have it off the top of my head, but yeah, it's if you can take advantage of the line, then makes those bad games less bad, I guess.
Yeah. And from Marshall's standpoint, their style of play continued where the guards just dominated all the shots. Crawford coming off the bench seemed to be like the big story where he took 18 shots and got 20 points. That was, what do you think of this? If you take 18 shots, what is the bare minimum you need to have it be a good night? Is it 18 points or is it like, do you need to have the same amount of points as shots at least?
At the very least, yeah. Yeah. And I wouldn't necessarily call that a good game, but it's not bad. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Yeah.
It's
That's like the, you know, our rest in peace, but Kobe would have like those 30 point games on 35 shots. Like
hey,
we know better now.
his last NBA game, that 60-point performance where he took so many shots.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, that's pretty much what I look for. Like you need to be at least your points need to be at bare minimum even with the amount of shots you're taking.
And that was with him, that was with a terrible 3-point performance too. He was only 1 for 6, but he just really penetrated well. They brought up at the end of the broadcast where he just penetrated and then made those mid-range shots in and around the paint area there.
Yeah, they made a lot of the just as a team as a whole. Marshall made a lot of just tough mid rangers. Not really a recipe for a great offense, which it showed there were big lulls in their offense at times, which made it easier for the Dukes. But yeah, I mean they were cooking in some parts of the game for sure.
They reminded me a lot of Duquesne last year, actually, with how they could. It seems like they have a lot of offensive firepower that can be streaky, and then we just are so much more consistent this year. I know we've harped on it a few podcasts in a row, but it just continues to show where we never get too far down, never get too far up though, which is why it was always around like a 9 point game up until the end where they started hacking us.
Yeah. Well-rounded game overall. Pretty much came down to Marshall like shot terrible from three. They were 4 of 25 from
And
three.
I'll say this: I credit a lot of the perimeter defense that we have to that too, because I don't think there's a bad perimeter defender out there for us.
No, that I can talk about it later, but the 3-point defense is really the only noteworthy weakness based on the numbers that I'm seeing of this team. There's no other glaring weaknesses in any part of their game, rebounding, shooting. They're really good at defending twos based on the numbers, but not threes for some reason. So this game, you know, showed that we can defend the three a little bit better. There's obviously always going to be a little bit of luck involved when it comes to 3-point percentage, opponent 3-point percentage, but you gotta do your best to contest.
Yeah, and you get a large enough sample size, it'll tell you something about how the defending is working out. I mean, I harped on it all last year. We just need that focus, that mental fortitude of just staying focused throughout. I feel like that's the only thing where if we lapse on the defense and the perimeter, that's where we'll give up those threes, and we probably have that and offensive rebounds, which we didn't give up too many tonight, but there was a few notable moments where I just saw that creeping in again.
Yeah, 10 offensive rebounds led up by or excuse me, 14 led up. I was looking at Duke's offensive rebounds. 14 led up. Not great. That's kind of hovering around the numbers from last year for this team. So don't want to do that consistently. But the other thing that stood out to me from the stat sheet, obviously towards the end of the game, it was just they were just hacking us to try and extend the game a little bit. But even before that, we were getting to the line a lot with Dixon, Saversov, as we mentioned earlier. We went 30 of 41 from the free throw line. That's 73% as a team, which is really good percentage for a team game. Like if you're over, I don't know, 70%, I would call that like a good team free throw percentage.
Yeah. Yeah, I think overall this year our team shot very well from the free throw line as a group, even with Dixon and like the big guys taking a lot of free throws, and their percentage not being that high. We're still shooting really well as a collective group. So, yeah, just another sign that I feel like this team is continuing to move in that right direction. I'm getting excited for conference play, although it's another 2 weeks of. And I will say this is this upcoming stretch is the lighter schedule that we mentioned in the last podcast. Even Marshall is technically considered a lighter schedule based off the record coming into the game, but I mean they have an offensive system that we struggled to cover last year. It was good to see us be able to cover it this year.
Yeah. Like you said, not the greatest opponents coming up on the schedule, including Marshall for this game, but just got to focus on the little things um in these next few games and just don't overlook any of these teams because that can easily happen when you have a stretch of games where you're supposedly supposed to win.
Yeah, and this season in particular, every game matters. because we're trying to build that resume to possibly get into the big dance. And a bad loss can kill your chances.
Yep. Gotta just stay focused. The A10's really good to be fair. So that should be motivation enough where you got to keep up with these other A10 non-conference records as well.
Yeah, there was talk on the 3 Bid League pod that I listened to. They always have a good podcast episode every week. This week they mentioned at the end the A10 might run through Dayton, Duquesne, and St. Joe's.
Yeah.
That the 3 northern teams in that conference might be the 3 top teams.
Yeah, I saw VCU's not having a great year so far. Obviously they were the representative last year. So yeah, I mean, A10 looks really strong, and it's going to be exciting once conference schedule starts, but it's also going to be super tough. So you got these teams got to earn it, and Duke's got to earn it.
Yep. Speaking of earning it, I know I don't think you watched the game. The women's team played Fordham yesterday. They were up 17 at the end of the third, towards the end of the third quarter. I think it dropped down to 15 at the end of the third. And then Fordham came back to tie us up to bring it to overtime. And Duke squeaked out a winner. Coach Burt was not happy after the game, would not give a single positive remark the entire post-game press conference. But Megan McConnell, 43 minutes played. Niall Bernard, 44 minutes played. It's a group of players where the bench is not deep. And so these players just have to be the most conditioned players in the country if we're going to keep up that pace. But they were able to pull it out. Meg made some pretty big threes. Niall Bernard hit some huge free throws at the end of the game to ice the game. It is so frustrating to watch this team based off of my preseason expectations. I've got to adjust. I admit that, but they never make it easy. I think I have to go back their schedule. They lost on a buzzer beater last week. They lost a close one against Niagara. They beat Niagara by 3. They beat Pitt by 1. They lost Bowling Green by 2. They're just like the Steelers. They decide to not have much offensive firepower, rely on defense, and just win out these close games. And I can't take 2 teams that I care about doing that consistently.
It's one of the toughest types of teams to watch, where Eagles are kind of like that too, except they've been on the winning side for most of the games, but every game you have to watch to the very end, and it's never going to be like cruising in any sort of way.
I'll say this about the Eagles. The score may not be cruising, but the style of play is definitely a little more comfortable.
It's a little more pleasing. Yeah, you're right on that.
But all right, going back to the men, what have the stats borne out so far?
I guess I'll get into. I'll save the fun stats for later, like individual players. I'll stick with team overall. So, as I mentioned, the biggest glaring weakness is opponent 3-point percentage, which we rank 289th in the country in opponent 3-point percentage. But honestly, there's not one ranking where we're in the 300s. Like, to get to put in perspective, last year we were probably, I don't know, bottom 25 team in offensive rebounds let up. So staying out of the 300 range.
360 or so.
360 teams in Division One basketball. So
All
if you stay out of the 300s, then you're pretty much like, you're not great, but like you're not one of the absolute worst. At least that's how I'm viewing it. And then contrast to that, as I mentioned earlier, 2-point percentage, we're really good at defending. Part of that is because we have a solid anchor in David Dixon, but 35th nationally in opponent 2-point percentage with 44%. National average is 50%.
Were we close to being 34th? Because it sounded like you were right in between 34 and 35.
No, I just can't speak. I'm just stupid. But what else do we have here that's worth noting? One of the better offenses in the league, ranking 70th in 3-point percentage, makes sense. This team's very 3-point dependent, as I mentioned last week. What else do we have that's worth noting? And then I would say free throw attempts is probably the second weakness. We're a little bit below average in free throw attempts per game, ranking 245th in the nation. But this game, as an example, as I said earlier, like before, it was kind of just hack players to extend the game. They were still over 20 free throw attempts even before that started. So this was a good sign, a good game where keep that type of aggressive mentality of getting to the rim. Keep that up.
Yep. Mentioning that aggressive mentality going to the rim, there was 2 plays that I think Dambrot should show in film from the second half where we had the ball in offense. The first was the rotation around that ended up in the Kareem Rozier floater, where we passed up some threes that last year I'm sure half of the team would have taken and worked it around to get that great shot. And then the negative would be Trey Clark's 3-point attempt a few minutes later, where he had Day and Kareem wide open to the left of him, and instead he just took a dribble and then put it up to kind of feel himself, and he missed that. So I mean the results can show it, but also the coach, I think, just harping on the difference between those 2 plays kind of continues to feed. We need to attack the rim more, especially when our offense is going well, when we're dominating a team. That's the way we continue to build the lead to 15, 17, 20 points, as opposed to 7, 9, and letting them have a chance to possibly get a run and close it out.
Yeah. And kind of what we said all along, like the numbers basically show that this is a more well-rounded team. We're not totally in the tank in any sort of category. Could we improve in some areas? Yes. But we're not totally in the tank in anything, and we're not stellar in any category other than 3-pointers made and 3-point percentage as a team. Even though Day is, as I said last week, isn't having his best 3-point shooting season. Most of that's from Kareem Rozier, and Savrasov, I think, is over 40% shooter for the season. And then one thing that I noticed, it was a particular play actually in this Marshall game, where it was just like really smart basketball, something that Tevin Brewer would try and do last year with taking advantage of switches, but he just doesn't have the height to get the guy the basketball a lot of the time. So I wrote down the 17-minute mark in the first half. Rozier and Barry's man in a pick and roll. They're on offense. They switch it. So Barry's man defending Rozier. Rozier's man is now defending Barre. Rozier sees the switch. He's like, I gotta get the ball to Barre, but there's a big size disadvantage there, similar to Brewer last year. He would recognize it but couldn't get it to him. Savrasov was on the left wing next to Rozier. He's like, I'm gonna kick it to Savrasov. He's got a better opportunity to get this in. Passes it to Savrasov. Still can't necessarily get it in. The guard is defending Barre, trying to box out the passing lane. Savrasov takes a dribble to the baseline. That defender who's guarding Barre now has to go and help on the baseline. Barre's now open, passes it to Barre, shot at the hoop. So that was just something that last year I remember we just couldn't take advantage of switches like that last year.
Yeah, and I think a big part, I mean, RJ Gunn was a huge help with spreading the floor out, but he didn't have the guard skills that I think Savrasov, the Drames, and Jakub Nasic
Yes.
bring.
Yep.
I think all of those guys are much better at passing, and that's just opened up our offense that much more.
Higher basketball IQ is probably what it boils down to. Like you said it exactly. The person that would be on the left wing in Savrasov's place last year would be RJ Gunn, and I don't really think he makes that play right there. So it's small things like that where are making the difference with this team for this season. So a lot to be excited about. So I'll just quickly go through some of the fun individual stats. Give some shine onto some players individually. We talked about David Dixon, or we talked about block percentage last week. Looked up what David Dixon's is specifically. He's ranked third in the country in block percentage with 15.9%. So he's basically solely responsible for the block percentage as a team.
He is to block percentage what Austin Rotroff was to our offensive rebounding.
Yes. Third in the country. Like, that's insane. Another insane stat, also third in the country, Fusini Drame. You're probably wondering yourself, what the heck is he ranked third in? Effective field goal percentage, 77, actually like 78, closer to 78%. Because the dude has been shooting, I think he takes like 2 threes a game, but is shooting 60% for the season. And then he's shooting like close to 75% from 2-point range. Another one, which this one really shocked me because I didn't really know this, but then I thought about it, I was like, this makes a lot of sense. Day Day is one of the best players in the country in taking care of the basketball. He ranks 25th in the country in turnover percentage. When you think about it, you're like, oh yeah, he doesn't turn the ball over. Like, we knew that about Rozier, like, because he's the point guard, and you kind of, that's one of the primary roles, is not turning the ball over as a point guard. But with Day Day, like, I don't know why. That, for me personally, that slipped my mind, and I was like, when I read that stat, I'm like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Well, it brings me back to the start of last year. Day Day was basically a point guard because Brewer was out hurt, and we had Quincy McGriff and Trey kind of playing the wings at the start of that year, and he can play point, but especially for our team's fit, he's much better on the wing. But yeah, he's basically another point guard out there, really, with how well he takes care of the ball.
Yeah, it doesn't even matter. Like, the amount of, it doesn't even matter if you're playing point guard or shooting guard. If you have the ball in your hand a lot and your turnover percentage is top 25 in the country, the amount, I should have looked up his usage in relation to that. But I mean, we all know that he has the ball. He's top, yeah, it's top 3, like, on the team. So that was pretty impressive and also surprising to me. Then the last one here I have, Trey Clark. Can't go with fun stats without mentioning Trey Clark. 67th in assist rate in the country at 32%. And obviously, with steal percentage, one of the top players in the country in stealing the ball, 25th in steal percentage at 5.2% in the country. These are all in the country, folks. 360 teams. I don't know what the math turns out with how many players that is, but it's a lot of players.
Definitely top 10%. No question there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Trey, I was thinking, yeah, we've got 2 great guards that never turn the ball over, and then we've got Trey, who assists the crap out of the ball, but
I think he's averaging like close, little a hair under 3 turnovers a game, which is not horrible, honestly. That's probably what you'd expect. But when he's next to 2 guys who are so stellar at keep taking care of the ball, it makes it look bad, but it's actually not that bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I have on stats. That's about it.
Yeah. No, those are some great nuggets, and we've got a lot of top players in college basketball in specific categories. So
yeah,
people don't think about that when they think Duquesne, but this is the year. 6-2 again. Those 2 losses, definitely 2 losses that I don't think really hurt your at-large chances. A tough game against Princeton, who I think is NCAA tournament caliber, and hopefully wins the Ivy League. And then Nebraska, who was undefeated at the time. I haven't followed them to see, so let me check that now.
Yeah,
And
I'd
it
be
was
curious.
they did lose to Creighton, who's number 15 in the country, and that's their only loss so far this year. They're playing right now against Minnesota to open up their Big Ten conference season. They are up 6 with 6 minutes 44 seconds to go in the first half. So we'll keep. No, we won't. We're wrapping this podcast up. We're not staying.
Wait, did you say in the first half? Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay,
Well,
yeah.
it's not 23-17 with 6 minutes to go in the second half. Jeez, I mean, Big Ten. It's not the Big Ten tournament, Alec, where they have ridiculously low scores.
I was thinking of football. I thought it was a football score.
Yeah,
That's my bad.
Right. Shout out to Iowa for getting a whopping 0 points when their over-under was 0.5 in the first half.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. And now next game against St. Peter's is going to be revenge game.
Yeah, for the draw maze. Well, sort of. I
Just call it a
don't know.
revenge game. Just call it a
All
revenge game.
I'd argue it's more of a revenge game for St. Peter's than it is the draw maze, but
I don't know how much of a revenge game it's going to be. I'm looking at KenPom right now. We're projected to have an 88% probability of winning against St. Peter's.
ESPN, 86.2% chance of winning.
I do have some key stats when it comes to St. Peter's and just how bad they are. So I said you want to stay out of the 300s earlier when it comes to Duquesne. There's a lot of 300s when it comes to St. Peter's, unfortunately. They're absolutely terrible about taking care of the ball.
Oh, that's probably going to go really well for the game against us.
Yeah. They're ranked 357th in the country. Like I said, 360 teams in college basketball. So they're that close to being the absolute worst. 24% of possessions end in a turnover. That is like that. I don't know how you can play basketball that way. And then they hack the crap out of you. They're ranked 360th in free throw rate. So also a good.
So the guards are going to
get those free throws averages up for us.
Day-Day's going to get some fouls called on 3-point attempts like he always does. And Trey Clark's going to have about 6 steals. All right. I'm picturing it now.
It's a real shame now in hindsight that Day-Day missed that free throw, even though he broke the record, but missed it right after, because he would have had a chance to really extend that baby if he had made the one after the breaking the record and just continue it into this game.
Yeah. I've never looked into that stat for college basketball. I'd imagine it's a lot higher than 44, though, for whatever the NCAA record is for.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it is. But yeah, just to extend his school record, I guess.
Yeah. So great things. There's some rumors out there that there's gonna be some inductees into the Duquesne Athletics Hall of Fame that went to school at the same time as us. Christian Kuntz being one of them. Steelers long snapper and holds the record for most sacks in Duquesne history. And some key women's basketball players, including April Robinson, who is displayed on the backdrop of the pod, right up in the corner there. And I feel like I'm going to have to somehow incorporate Megan McConnell into this once her playing days are over too. So I'll have to redesign that a little bit.
I think that's a must. Yeah.
Is there any men's player that you think I would have to, like? Day wasn't here long enough. Trey's not going to be here long enough. But I feel like if they make an NCAA tournament team, at least one of these players has to make that backdrop. Who would it be?
If they made the NCAA tournament, I think the whole team deserves to be on the backdrop.
All right, we just use them as the backdrop, is what you're saying.
I mean, that's a big friggin' deal. That's why we're doing this whole thing, is to try and make the dance.
Maybe Dambrot
Like it would almost be a like it would be insulting to leave anyone off. You know what I mean?
Well, I understand, but I'm saying there's only so many spots. I've gotta pick and choose here.
But the outcome that you just gave out there was they made the tournament. They all deserve it then.
Well, I mean, yeah, but we can't put what 15 players and
You
coaches
just
into,
get like a group, just get like a team photo and put it on there and just slap it on. I don't care.
and then for symmetry purposes, I gotta find other great Duquesne teams. Like I guess and just
No, it's just that one. Like I don't think you're
yeah,
understanding. It's just that one goes on.
no, no. I've got to give credit where to all the teams. Got to be fair on this. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
You'll figure it out because I won't be
That's
helping at
true.
all with
I'll
that.
figure
So
it out, and I'll send
nothing.
it to you, and then you'll criticize, and then I'll make changes, and we'll figure it out in the fact that I will make changes after you make comments.
Honestly, you could just do whatever
I
you want because
I understand I can do
I'm not
whatever I
gonna be
want.
passionate enough to like actually work on it myself. So you
I'm
can
not.
honestly, my opinion doesn't even matter.
I understand, but I'm still going to take it into account. You understand how this works.
No, I know. I'm just saying you honestly don't need to listen to a word I say, even during the podcast.
Well, obviously, I mean, I could do anything I want with this podcast, but
Yeah,
I'd like to try and get other people's opinions because I know mine is, only right about half of the time.
I am being honest though. Like if the team makes the tournament, then team photo. I think that is deserving.
All right, then I would do their team photo and I would do the women's team from when they made the tournament, and those would be the two sides,
I
and
think
that
that's
would
fair,
be good.
at least
Right.
temporarily,
Right. Oh, definitely. Like,
at least for like next season or something.
yeah, or yeah.
Yeah,
Well, yes, and if we make it this year, any podcast we do after we make it, they're 100% the only background. Like there's
yeah,
no.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
is their team picture. That's it.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah,
All right, we found some middle ground.
yeah. We'll continue to work it out. We've got about a year.
None of this may happen either. So
Yeah,
you
we
could
we
just
might just keep
go
it out
with
of the
whatever you were thinking before.
All right.
A lot of season left.
Um, that's really it for the Duquesne sports news. Football team's done. Um,
Oh, I was so mad about that because they were gonna play Villanova in the next game.
oh, they would have gotten
Like
smoked.
if I know they would have got smoked, but I would have been able to see it
Yeah.
get smoked.
Would you have been wearing Villanova stuff or the Duquesne stuff?
I would have worn Duquesne stuff.
All right. Well, I mean, Villanova's your other school, so
I know. Yeah, I'm not a Villanova bandwagon. Like that was like a kind of how people who didn't go to Notre Dame root for Notre Dame. Like I rooted for Villanova growing up. So not just because they're in Philly. Like that was just I mean they have cool colors too. So
yeah. I mean, they've got like Carolina blue mixed in with navy blue. It's
yeah, can't go wrong.
perfect. Uh, yeah. Shout out to Jay Wright. Got us a trivia win.
Yeah,
Never forget.
never forget that team.
All right. And with that, I do have to mention one more thing. The Morgan and Morgan commercial was playing during the game. For those of you that don't know, I do work for the annoying advertiser known as Morgan and Morgan. So that's just I can't escape work is really what it's come down to.
It's everywhere, like everywhere.
Yeah, there's a competing local law firm who's just going right up against our billboards of size matters and saying size doesn't matter. The results do, and it's like,
Wow,
yeah. So
that's I forget what I was gonna say. Oh well, doesn't matter.
yeah.
Half of this stuff that comes out of my mouth is not worth listening to anyway.
Oh, I mean, the last 10 minutes has been our post pod talk that we just kept recording.
Yeah, basically.
Last episode we raved about our love for Taco Bell and specifically the drinks there. So anybody who's listening this far, go ahead and comment your favorite Taco Bell beverage. See who you're more in line with, Alec or myself.
Personally, I split between Baja Blast, obviously, and the dragonfly berry, I think, or something, whatever that's called.
Dragon fruit berry or dragonfly.
Drag,
Definitely dragon.
whatever the purple. It's called an iced tea, but there's no hint of resemblance of an iced tea in that drink, but it's delicious, whatever it is.
Meanwhile, I love the mango fiesta tea, and it is by far my favorite tea of all time.
The hottest the thing that I still remember when you told me that was it's better than Snapple peach tea, which is your favorite.
Yep.
Which
Well,
that's high praise.
I love all peach teas. I have not met a peach tea that I don't like, but this mango fiesta tea is just unreal. And it's 100% because of the sugar content. I'm sure. Doesn't matter. It's just like Sprite at McDonald's or Coke at McDonald's. Like that, it doesn't. You know that it's because there's more concentrated sugar. That doesn't matter. It's just better. It hits different.
Chef's kiss.
It hits like a David Dixon block that's built up and you can see coming.
Speaking of that, he blocked a 3-pointer tonight on a switch. That was like so disrespectful. Love that. Yeah, guy's good.
Saw a highlight of Hassan Whiteside blocking and literally just catching the ball mid blocks.
Yeah, that's the next step. That's the next step.
Yeah, he'll get there.
Yeah.
All right. We've rambled on quite a bit. I have no idea where we are time wise, but we've probably talked equally about non-Duquesne sports related things as 2K Duke's content.
That's what happens when I wish it was 2 games. 2 games is the perfect amount. We've either had 3 or 1. So this is what happens when you just have 1.
Yeah. And eventually I'm going to get you to watch some more women's basketball, but it's slow build up.
I should try, but yeah, it's just I don't know how you find the time, honestly. I don't know how you do it. You're a robot.
Admittedly, it's a lot harder this year. We talked about it. I think that was off the pod talk last episode too. It's just so much harder this year. I don't know what it is.
I agree.
It's partly we're older, and it's partly like work is more, but it's also just like I don't know. Sports.
But here we are. We're grinding. We're just grinders.
We are making time out every week, most weeks. Gonna be every week moving forward.
All right, let's wrap this up.
All right. And with that, go Dukes.
Go Dukes.
The Dukes are back and now it's time to ride.